Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Part 3 of how to play the Modern Benoni. And I'm setting this up on the playlist that you can follow. Um, so you'll always be able to watch these videos in near chronological order. Now, so far we've done 2 videos, and we're dealing with the classical variation. And here in part 3, we are going to be talking about Black's last major plan in the classical variation. Here, Black plays knight d7. And unlike in the last line we spoke about, which entails the knight going from a6 to c7, supporting the b5 advance, with the line knight bd7, Black isn't supporting his b5 break at all. So he is basically renouncing his play on the queen side for the time being, and he is going to play in the center and on the king side. So the f5 break after suitable preparation is going to be the major idea. All right. In this game that we're going to look at, knight e5 combined with g5 are going to be played, and this is an idea that became very popular in the 1970s following its use by none other than Bobby Fischer. So sit back, grab your tea or coffee, or whatever you drink, and get ready to enjoy this game. This game is from Malmo, 1999, with the white pieces Boris Gelfand, and with the black pieces a player named Jesper Hall. Game started out d4, knight f6, c4, c5, d5, e6, knight c3, e takes, c takes, d6, knight f3, g6, e4, bishop g7, bishop e2. Remember, we're looking at the classical line, castles, rook e8. Here's that idea again, knight d2 that we saw in the Kramnik-Topalov game. And now, knight bd7. And again, we saw this idea in the Topalov-Kramnik game. So, knight bd7. So, this line was very popular in the 1970s, as I mentioned, and in the 80s. And this was because of Fischer's spectacular win over Spassky in Reykjavik way back in 1972. A4. Now, White has several moves here that he can choose from. A4 is not critical. H3 can be played. What else? Rook E1, Queen C2, and even F4, transposing to a line of the 4 pawns attack. Now, after Queen C2 in Spassky Fischer from Game 3 of their World Championship match, Black played this amazing idea, Knight H5. And Spassky did the obvious looking thing, right? Just ruin the pawn structure. And after bishop takes H5, G takes H5, and then he just went Knight C4 attacking this. And Black justified his idea by being active on the king side. After all, a new file has been opened up, so we can look at that as the silver lining right on the cloud. So what did the Fischer do? Fischer played knight e5. Spassky played knight e3. Queen h4. Bishop d2. Knight came to g4. Knight takes. H takes g4, undoubling the pawns. Bishop f4. And now queen f6. Black undoubled his pawns, and he had a great game. Alright. So now h5, knight h5 is a great move. The problem is today is that White can adjust his move orders to avoid this move. Okay, so for example, instead of doing queen c2 there, perhaps h3. And now this prevents the move knight e5 because of f4. Okay. Now black will sometimes play the move g5, which stops f4, and then he can play uh, knight e5. Okay. However, with this idea, you have to be ready to meet this pawn sacrifice, knight c4. Okay. Play gets very sharp. Other possibilities, of course, knight b6, and then even the move h6. So back to our game. The knight bd7, a4, knight e5 is played. A6 is not necessary here. Okay, so if black wants to bring his pieces over to the king side, um, at some point you're gonna have to play a6 to stop, the knight from posting up here, right? And also you might want to stop bishop b5 from coming in at some point. But however, it's not, you don't have to rush it on this move. Okay. So knight e5 right away. Okay. So why is knight e5 good right here is because black doesn't have to worry about f5, excuse me, f4 in this instance, because he can then play knight eg4. Okay. So for example, if knight c4, then knight takes e4, right? And you might say, hey, you're losing the piece. Nope, hold on. Bishop takes g4, bishop takes g4, queen takes g4, and now bishop d4 check. Just wins back the piece after the king moves over. So again, always look for dynamic opportunities in this opening. Okay. So after knight e5, queen c2 here. Now we spoke about a5, excuse me, knight h5 earlier. Now, for example, let's look at this. So after queen c2, switch the move orders around a bit. Whoops, sorry about that. So knight e5. Okay, here we go. Rook a3, and let's say for example b6, and now queen c2, knight h5. Bishop takes h5, g takes h5. Now white played the move knight d1, bishop a6 hitting the rook, and then simply rook h3 was played, right? And now this exchange sacrifice is utilized to exploit the weakness of black's castle position. Okay. Bishop takes, knight takes, b5, ignoring that, knight d e3, b takes a4, and now knight f5, reaching murderer's row of a position. Knight g6, rook takes h5, bishop e5, g3, rook b8, and knight 1e3. And this is a great position for white. And this was from the game Petrosian Rishkovsky, Russian Championship, Soviet Championship, Moscow, 1976. And I just want to show the evolution of Fischer's idea. So, um, in the context that Fischer used it in Knight H5 was fantastic. But again, GMs had evolved and would just use different move orders. So you can't play by rote and just say, "Oh, Fischer played Knight H5, I'm going to play Knight H5." No, when the move orders are switched around, you have to be very careful to assess the situation. In this case, you have this rook here ready to transfer across the third rank, as we saw in the Kramnik-Topalov game. And so the idea is not effective in that situation. Okay, so that was a kind of a little bit of a tangent. Let's get back to the game. So knight e5 was played, queen c2 by Gelfand. And now g5. This is one of the fundamental ideas in the position because it fortifies the knight. Now, what's the price? E5, F5 is weak. All right. So, give and take. So, black is trying to play on the king side, and the main idea is to break open with F5. Okay, how is this going to be prepared? Because this is important to know. This is the plan of the entire opening. Okay, black is going to play knight g6. Then, this knight is going to go to g4. Right? Or after knight g6, just simply g4, and this knight will go to h5 then. Okay, so this knight can end up either on g4 or h5, excuse me, depending on the situation. So after g5, rook a3, again, common theme, queen e7. Okay, and this move, black does not reveal exactly what he's going to do. He just puts pressure on e4. Okay, black could go for knight g6, or play a move like knight fg4 and even g4. But right now he's just keeping things under wraps. So a5 is played. This is important. Against the move rook e1, it's a stereotypical move that players that might not really understand the position but want to, do a solid move might do. Against rook e1, black can then play knight fg4. For what? To prepare f5. And let's say after knight f1, knight g6, remember the plans. Queen d1 with the double attack here. This knight can jump back to h6 again, preparing f5. Okay, and notice how black holds up the pawn from advancing to e5. So that pawn is not a moving target by any means. The pawn is held up, then attacked. Okay, so after queen e7, a5. Just keep going. What do we got here? a5, and then what happened? h6. The only thing, again, this is one of those moves. It's very solid, but it cuts you off from one of your plans, which is that you could do, which is knight fg4. Remember, I just showed you in the variation and then back. So now that you put the pawn at h6, that's out of the question. Gelfand, in his notes, pointed out this move G4, with the idea being after F4, G takes, knight takes check, bishop takes F3, knight G4, then takes, and takes. And both sides have their weaknesses. Of course, black has this, white has that. White has this open king side to work on. Black has a bishop here. So this is a, kind of unbalanced dynamic game that you strive for if you're black playing this variation. Okay, so after a5, h6, and now knight d1, bishop to d7, knight c3. Okay, now white wanted to play the move knight e3. However, black gets counterplay after knight g6. Right, this pressure is revealed here. Now bishop d3 and knight f4. And now you see the benefits of adding that queen to the attack on e4. So knight c3, and now rook f8. Okay, so after rook f8, it's easy to tell why black has made that move after we've been discussing it for 15 minutes. It's to support f5. All right, and then at the same time, another plus with the move is that it prevents the exchange of this bishop right here. Now it's funny because I said before in the other videos that this bishop often has trouble finding a meaningful role in this opening, which is true. Here it's really serving as a defensive stalwart, and its job is basically to defend these weakened light squares. That's the job of this bishop. So rook f8 not only supports the pawn push on f5, but also prevents this bishop on d7 from being exchanged. So bishop b5 and now bishop c8. Now knight d1. Now we see this idea of knight h5. Knight a3 was played. And now a6. Now the downside of this move is now that this b5 square is weakened, and you can see these knights having access to c4. So that means this square is going to be weak for the rest of the game. So yes, you get a tempi on the bishop, but if the bishop moves, you're stuck with the weakness for the rest of the game. Now Boris Gelfand suggested knight f4 instead here, and he gives this line rook e1, knight g4, knight dc4, and then knight f6. All right, so with the double-edged complicated position, white is probably a little better here. Black is somewhat cramped at this point. Instead, a6 was played, and now bishop e2, knight f4, and bishop d1. White has the idea of playing rook e1 here, followed by knight d f1. I'm sorry, not this knight. Knight d f1 to g3. And the idea is to have these two knights invade f5. Another idea is to break on f4 by playing g3 and f4. So in this position, after bishop d1, black played f5. And the problem is that it doesn't work here tactically because he cannot retake on f5. All right, so basically he did not strengthen his own position, but actually weakened his position on the king side without any compensation. And this basically just gives Gelfand attack that he was looking for. He should have prepared perhaps a little better with bishop d7. And then, for instance, knight dc4, knight takes, and now f5. And let's say bishop takes, g takes, knight b6, f takes, and then knight d7, queen takes, and queen e4 with the good game. Nice equal game. Let me just show here that basically black has excellent compensation after this exchange. Okay, these pawns are awesome for black. All right, so going back, just f5 was played immediately, and Gelfand simply played e takes f5, queen f7. Obviously, black's idea, figuring he can just pick this up. But now knight e4, rook d8, and now g4. And so white is willing to give back the pawn now, but he's going to attack the king side. So he gives back this pawn, knight d5, queen takes d5, and now h4. And we can see the initiative growing for Gelfand in this position. And now look how useful the rook is on a3. b5, of course, what are you going to do but look for your counter chances? H takes g5 was played. H takes g5. Bishop takes g5. Bishop b7. And the exchange is given up to try to basically weaken the hurricane that's in black's position. But it's just not enough. Rook e3. Knight c4. And now rook e1. And now white is just regrouping, preparing for the final assault here. So black has this temporary initiative, and so white is just consolidating and regrouping his position. Queen d4, b3, kicking the knight, knight e5, and now just simply queen d2. Knight d3. Of course, black avoids this. avoids this endgame. For example, queen takes, knight takes, bishop h6. F4, knight d3, rook e7. This is just busted for black. So this is why black avoids the ending after queen d2. Instead he plays knight d3, and now just simply queen g5. This is brutal. So rook d7. Of course, the rook was attacked also. Bishop f3, giving up the exchange. Giving back the exchange rather. Knight takes e1. Rook takes e1. It's always good to give back. Bishop takes e4. Rook takes e4. Queen a1 check. King to g2. Queen f6. Queen h5. rook d8, and now rook e6, queen f7, queen g5, and this is rough. Rook d7, bishop d5, and that was it. And finally, black was forced to resign. So that is the end of part 3, and that was a brutal lesson in the Benoni, how things can go wrong based on inaccuracies. But nevertheless, our purpose was to show the plan of knight bd7 of in f5 with the attack coming on the king side for black. Obviously, black did not lose because of the opening, but he lost to a stronger player in Grandmaster Boris Gelfand, and also he just played some inaccuracies, slipped up, which we all do. So again, don't really worry about the results, but understand the plan of playing f5, and understand that when you play knight bd7, you are kind of temporarily putting your plans to attack on the queen side on hold, and you're deciding to play in the center and on the king side. So with that, hope you stick around for the next video, and please like and subscribe and comment. It's greatly appreciated, and I'll see you on the next video.